If one of these news come across your news feed in your social media accounts, or maybe you heard this issue, well, you are on the right platform to discuss these issues. Welcome to Asian Center YouTube channel. I am Mr. Michael Henry O, presenting this paper entitled "The Size Matter: How Taiwan Safeguarding Its National Security and Sovereignty Over China's Hostility." This is my partial fulfillment from my subject AS211, Security Issue in the Asia Pacific. First, Taiwan-China conflict is not new to us. Let me start my presentation by revisiting the roots of this conflict. Taiwan was administered by China's Qing dynasty in 1863 to 1895. In 1895, Japan won the First Sino-Japanese War. The Qing dynasty or government had to cede Taiwan to Japan. After the World War II, Japan surrendered and relinquished control over its territory had taken from China. The Republic of China, one of the victors in the war, began ruling Taiwan, but in the next year, a civil war broke out in China. Then the leader Chiang Kai-shek troop was beaten by Mao Zedong Communist Army. Chiang and the remnants of the Kuomintang government fled to Taiwan in 1949. This group referred as mainland Chinese, then making up the 1.5 million people, dominated Taiwan's politics. President Lee Chung-hee, known as the father of democracy, led constitutional changes toward more democratic political layout, which eventually led to the first election of first non-Kuomintang president, Xi Jinping, in 2000. When Chinese elected Xi Jinping, Beijing was alarmed because Mr. China has openly backed independence from China. Then China put forward the formula known as One Country, Two System, which under Taiwan will be given significant autonomy if it accepted Chinese ratification. This system was established in Hong Kong to be used as something of showcase the Taiwanese people back to the mainland. Taiwan rejected the offer, but it did not relax the rules on which to invest in China. After Mr. Chen was re-elected in 2004, China passed a so-called anti-secession law, stating China's right to use non-peaceful means against Taiwan if tried to succeed from China. Mr. Chen was succeeded by Mai Ying-yong, who after taking office in 2008 sought to improve relationship with China through economic agreements. In 2006, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen was elected. She leads the Democratic Progressive Party or DPP, which leaned towards eventual official independence from China. After Donald Trump also won in 2016 US election, Ms. Tsai spoke up to her on the phone, a break with the US policy set in 1979 when foreign relations were cut, despite of the formal tie. The U.S. has pledged to supply Taiwan with defensive weapons and has stressed any attack by China would cause growing concern. Throughout 2018, China stepped up under pressure international companies, forcing them to list Taiwan as a part of China on the website and threatening to block them from doing business with China. If Taiwan failed to comply. Tsai won the second term in 2020. By that time, Hong Kong had seen months of unrest with protests demonstrating against the mainland increasing its influence. A developing mania in Taiwan were watching closely. At the same time, the U.S. has been intensifying its outreach to Taiwan and reassuring Taipei of its confused support, and Washington sent the highest level department official in decades to visit the island. Beijing strongly criticized the meeting, warning the U.S. not to send any wrong signals to Taiwan independence elements to avoid severe damage to U.S.-China relationship. During the controversial visit, China conducted live fire military exercises in the waterway that separate the island from the mainland. President Joe Biden administration has said its commitment to Taiwan. In the first few days of Mr. Biden's presidency, Taiwan reported a large incursion by Chinese warplanes over 2 days. China sees Biden administration trying to rally the democracy along China's preferency and the ideologically tangled alignment against China. On this view, it's not just about regional peace, it's also about the global democracy. Okay, you also remember that in 1979, the United States established formal diplomatic relationship with the People's Republic of China. At the same time, it served as democratized abrogated its mutual defense treaty with ROC. But the United States maintains a robust and official relationship with the island and continues to sell equipments to its military. Beijing repeatedly urged Washington to stop selling weapons and to cease contract with Taipei. But the United States' goal is to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. It has also implored both Beijing and Taipei to maintain the status quo and say it does not support Taiwanese independence. Now let's look about how Taiwan's under the two presidents of the United States. Under the president of Donald Trump, the United States deepened with ties with Taiwan over Chinese objections, including by selling more than 18 billion of worth of arms to the military and unveiling of 250 million complex for its de facto embassy in Taipei. He also sent several senior administrative officials, including a cabinet member, to Taipei, and during his last days in the office, the State Department admitted a long-held restriction governing where and how U.S. officials can meet with Taiwanese counterparts. The Joe Biden administration appears to be taking a similar approach, affirming that Trump's administration decision to allow U.S. officials to meet more freely with Taiwanese officials, sending an official delegation of former U.S. officials to visit Sai and Taipei. Biden was also the first U.S. president to invite Taiwanese representative to attend his first presidential inauguration. As a result of conflicts, China has employed a variety of coercive tactics short of armed conflicts as a remnant of this measure since Tai's election in 2016. Its objective is to wear down Taiwan and prompt the island people to conclude that their best option is unification with the mainland. China has increased the frequency of scale of patrols in bombers, fighter jets, and surveillance aircrafts over and around Taiwan. It also increasingly sailed its warship and aircraft carriers through the Taiwan Strait in shows of force. Furthermore, Taiwan has also reported thousands of cyber attacks from China government agency every day. These attacks have soared in recent years. In 2020, Taipei accused four Chinese groups of hacking into at least 10 Taiwanese governments agency and 6,000 official email accounts since 2018 to try to access government data and personal informations. Beijing also used non-military measures to pressure Taiwan. In 2016, China suspended a cross-strait communication mechanism with the main Taiwan liaison office. It restricted tourism to Taiwan, and the number of mainland tourists visiting Taiwan has fallen from a high of over 4 million in 2015 and 2.7 million in 2019. China has also pressured global corporations, including airlines, hotel chains, to list Taiwan as a Chinese province. In addition, in 2020 election, for example, China spread disinformation and apparent inform to damage China and boost the KMT's presidential candidates. Such efforts are part of China's larger strategy of employing coercion to erode trust in Taiwan's political system and show division in Taiwanese society. However, experts view that the PP's success in recent elections, including Tsai re-election in 2020, as a revoke of Beijing failure. On economic aspect, Taiwan's economy remains reliant to the trade with China, which is the island's largest trading partner. However, their economic relations experienced disruption in the recent year, partly due to the Beijing pressures on the island and Taiwanese officials growing concern about its over-reliance on trade with China. Under President Ma also was won in office in 2008 to 2016, Taiwan signed more than 20 pacts with PRC or People's Republic of China, including 2010 Cross-Strait Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, in which they agreed to lift barriers to trade. China and Taiwan resumed direct air mailings that have been banned for decades. They also agreed to allow bank insurances and other financial services. Still in 2020, Taiwan's export to China hit all-time high. Beijing has pressured conflicts not to sign free trade agreements with Taiwan. A handful of countries may have signed free trade pacts with the island. New Zealand, Singapore are also developed economies to sign such agreement. Beijing also pushed the Taiwan's inclusion from multilateral trading blocs, including the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership or CPTPP and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP, with China included in RCEP but not in CPTPP. This Taiwan-China conflict operates at two levels. Beijing has a long assertive sovereignty over Taiwan, as long stated that it reserved the rights to use force to accomplish national unification as it finds it. This concern heightened now a part of Xi Jinping has linked the recovery of Taiwan as a high priority project of national rejuvenation and achievement of the Chinese dream. China's basic policies did not change. Unification, as it's called it, preferably by a peaceful means, but with always the possibility of the force. The appeal of that bubble was never high in Taiwan, but it cratered when Hong Kong went through the phase that began in 2009 with escalating conflicts surrounding protests against a law that would facilitate extradition to the mainland. Beijing imposition of dramatically far-reaching national security law for Hong Kong and dismantling the limited democracy that Hong Kong and had enjoyed. A top concern from U.S. analysis is that China's growing military capability and assertiveness, as well as deterioration across strait borders, could spark a conflict. Such conflict has potential lead to the U.S.-China confrontation. That because China hasn't ruled out using force to achieve Taiwan's unification, and the United States hasn't ruled out defending Taiwan if China attacks. The U.S. Department of Defense said in the 2020 report that China's military, the People's Liberation Army or PLA, is likely preparing for contingency to unify Taiwan with the mainland by force. However, experts disagreed about the livelihood and timing of a Taiwanese invasion. The top U.S. military commander in the Indo-Pacific warned that China could try to invade Taiwan within the next decade, which some experts believe that such invasion is farther off. While others believe 2049 is a critical date, she has emphasized that unification with Taiwan is essential to achieve what he calls the Chinese dream, which is China's greater power status restored in 2049. Taiwan likely doesn't have the capabilities to defend against Chinese attack without external support. China's defense spending is at least 15 times Taiwan, and the PLA has invested heavily equipment needed for Taiwan's trade contingency. Xi and the DDP have emphasized plans for boosting defense spending. Their cabinet proposed at least 10% increase in the defense budget for the fiscal year 2021 compared to the previous year, reaching a total of more than 15 billion US dollars. As part of this expanded military budget will go toward acquiring cruise missile, naval mines, and advanced surveillance system to defend Taiwan's coast. The United States has attempted to maintain a delicate balance between supporting Taiwan and preventing war with China throughout this policy strategic ambiguity. Citing increased Chinese aggression, some experts such as Richard and has attempted hacks several members of the U.S. Congress have agreed that Washington should explicitly say that it would respond to any Chinese use of force against Taiwan. Other experts have disagreed with this position. However, the United States has encouraged Taiwan to increase its defense spending and regularly sail ships through Taiwan Strait to demonstrate its military presence in the region. A war between China and Taiwan would be enormously destructive and perhaps the first war in decades with highly urbanized, population dense, and technologically advanced countries on both sides. Taiwan was relatively well protected from invasion. The Taiwan Strait, approximately 100 miles wide, was an insurmountable obstacle to People's Republic, which lacked the wealth to fund Navy and sea forces needed to make the invasions possible. But remember that Taiwan is highly defensible terrain and the Taiwanese are like to put a stiff resistance and fight to a better end. Even China could make it through the Taiwan Strait, the technology superior Republic of China air-enabled force would make it short work of an invasion force. As late as early as 2000, just as invasion was severely described as the million-man swim, would have almost certainly ended in Turkish, especially if U.S. forces intervened. The Republic of China Armed Force numbers 165,000 active duty force backed up by 1.6 million reservists. Its Navy and Air Force comprise the first line of defense. Meanwhile, Taiwan's Navy is shifting away from the fleet center at a larger destroyer-sized ship to be more sensible missile-armed catamaran ships better suited for sinking ambiguous ships attempting to cross strait landing. The Navy is also developing its own attack submarine to replace its four aging subs, including two dating all the way back to the World War II. This tangled history has made the status of Taiwan difficult to determine. In common parlance, a colony is a territory subject to foreign law. Under this definition, Taiwan qualified as colony during the Qing Dynasty, but under international law, there is a view that Taiwan cannot be considered a colony because the government of China formally incorporated Taiwan as a province of China under their law. And this view, only unincorporated territories are considered to be colonies. If this doctrine is upheld, military resistance to the unification of Taiwan appears will be violation to international law. This is an urgent need for authoritative legal opinion on this matter. Furthermore, it's not surprising that Taiwanese people who have not been ruled by China for more than 125 years, whose system of government is very different from the China, should want to determine their future. Taiwan is now self-governing democracy. In response to the escalation of cross-strait relationship in 2021, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen laid down four commitments of the future of Taiwan. In the recent speech of the Double 10 National Day, a public holiday commemorating the Wuchang's uprising against the Qing Dynasty and refunding the Republic of China in 1912. Now, to end my presentation, there are four aspects of why size like Taiwan does matter in this conflict. First, Taiwan is not the subject of just jurisdiction of China. Second, it is to remain liberal democracy with constitutional government. Third, Taiwan's sovereignty is to be protected. Finally, its future to be decided by the majority of the Taiwanese residents, not by the foreign invaders. Now, here's some scholastic references. If you have questions or clarification to my discussion, please feel free to comment down below. I will be glad to answer that one. So that's it for today.